That's what they're mad about. 41 nationally televised games, and they are furious over it. I can't understand.
The WNBA isn't just handling some minor internal drama right now, it's caught up in a full-fledged fan base feud. On one side, you have Aja Wilson and her crew of salty sidekicks allegedly murmuring about boycotting Caitlin Clark's games. And on the other side, just the millions of fresh fans Caitlin has pulled into women's basketball with pure talent and charisma, all left wondering why anyone would go out of their way to criticize the person keeping the league relevant.
But you want to boycott the one player, looking right at you, Angel Reese and Aja Wilson, one player that has caused the revenue to go way up in the monetary values. That's what you want to do. You think you're helping these women?
Let's just say it. The WNBA has never been this popular. Indiana Fever games are selling out like Beyoncé concerts, ESPN keeps adding more WNBA slots to its schedule, and social media is flooded with clips, highlights, and endless Caitlin Clark debates. But instead of celebrating with champagne and capitalizing on this surge, a few disgruntled veterans and their fan base are treating it like some kind of existential threat. Apparently, the real enemy isn't mediocrity or irrelevance. It's success, especially when that success belongs to Caitlin.
Original fans, activist fans, that's what they are, all right? Just keeping it real. They don't like the fact that you want to watch these games. They don't like the fact that you are 3 or 4 times the amount of them.
Have you seen the news lately? There's practically an all-out fan skirmish brewing over the fact that Caitlin Clark's games are airing nationally 41 times this season, more than anyone else in the league. Some people are so furious about it. You'd think Clark stole their lunch money. The internet is now overflowing with dramatic calls for protest, as if we're living in an overhyped teen dystopian novel, all because one rookie had the audacity to get some attention.
Caitlin Clark in the Fever will have more nationally televised game than any NBA player this year. Sorry, LeBron. Sorry, Luka. Sorry, every other player in the league. Let's be honest. I've seen the NBA ratings. She's beaten most.
Believe it or not, there are WNBA fans, grown adults, mind you, who are actively plotting to boycott Fever games just to lower the ratings. Imagine being so upset about someone else's time in the spotlight that your master plan is to tank your own league's numbers. And no, this isn't just some fringe Reddit thread gone rogue. Some of these boycott promoters are actually linked to WNBA media circles, straight up urging people to skip games or watch through shady streams, as if that's somehow going to teach ESPN a lesson or something.
Oh, they're all mad right now, furious, and my goodness, guys, they're talking boycott. Oh, what? Oh, there's strength in numbers. There's tens of you.
But here's the reality. Caitlin Clark isn't just outshining the WNBA stars. She's on track to outshine the NBA's biggest names too. She has more national TV games this season than LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant. That's not a coincidence. It's a shift in the entire sports power dynamic. This isn't just about airtime. It's about who's taking over the spotlight in basketball culture now. And spoiler alert, it's not Aja Wilson.
Yes, I understand. This is a very, very small minority. It is a very small minority of people, but it is a loud, vocal minority. And this is not the general public. This is not the general population.
Let's talk about Aja Wilson for a second because, wow, if jealousy were a stat, she'd be leading the league. While Caitlin Clark is out here smashing viewership records and selling out arenas, Aja's been posting more subtweets than box scores. Instead of riding the wave of new attention, she's too busy throwing shade like it's part of her defensive drills. It's almost impressive how someone so accomplished can sound this bitter. You'd think the WNBA handed Caitlin her own TV network and a parade float the way Aja's acting. What's wild is that Aja isn't losing anything. She's just not used to sharing. She's had the spotlight to herself for years, unbothered and unchallenged. Now, someone younger, flashier, and quite frankly, more marketable steps in, and suddenly it's all, Caitlyn's getting too much attention, and the league's playing favorites. Newsflash, attention isn't a charity, it's earned. And while Clark's been putting on a masterclass night after night, Wilson's giving off bitter big sister energy in the group chat.
Asia Wilson is her name. Quote, "It doesn't matter what we all do as black women, we're still going to be swept underneath the rug. That's why it boils my blood when people say it's not about race, because it is."
You'd expect a 3-time MVP to be a bit more confident, but seeing Wilson react to Clark's rise feels like watching a Netflix star realize their show got cut off mid-season because something better hit the scene. It's not Caitlyn's fault that fans are tuning in for her instead of bitter Twitter rants. The cameras chase the story, and right now, Asia's left playing the antagonist in a drama she willingly stepped into. The truth is, a small group of longtime fans who've stuck around since the days of empty stands and halftime t-shirt tosses are feeling like their hidden club just got exposed. They supported the league when it was niche, and now that it's going mainstream, thanks to Clark, they're clinging to their vintage merch.
Supposed to talk about it out loud, maybe. That's a massive part. Straight white girl's a big part of it, too. I mean, it's out loud. It's out loud. It just came out of my mouth like that. Just easy peasy. So they're mad, and they are calling for boycott.
And let's be real, this so-called boycott movement isn't about fairness or justice. It's all about ego. It's about a handful of longtime fans and players who would rather watch the league shrink than see Clark become its future face. Some media, voices have already called them out for being absurd, pointing out that most genuine fans are too busy enjoying the games to complain about airtime.
Close. Are now planning to, quote, boycott Indiana Fever games to affect the viewership. They really think they matter in the big scheme of things.
What we're seeing is classic gatekeeping behavior. The OG fans who think they own the league's identity are freaking out now that new blood is shaking things up. This happens in every fandom, from hip-hop heads complaining about TikTok rappers to comic book purists losing it over blockbuster movie adaptations. It's all the same insecure energy.
It's just mad. And what they have now trying to do is they are trying to boycott Indiana Fever games. I'm not joking when I say this. They are literally saying, boycott Indiana. We need to all boycott the Indiana Fever games so they don't get more national TV games. We don't get more national TV games next year.
Meanwhile, the boycott logic doesn't even make sense. If you genuinely care about the players and the league's success, deliberately tanking viewership is probably the dumbest move you could make. Clark's success is boosting the league's EMS profile, which means more money for everyone. This petty protest could backfire so badly that it ends up hurting the very players the boycotters claim to support.
I cannot believe it. And again, this is a minority of people, but the problem is the idiotic minority somehow have, a lot of them somehow have ins with WNBA players, WNBA teams and stuff. I cannot believe.
Let's talk numbers. Before Caitlyn showed up, WNBA games were doing all right if they managed to hit 200,000 viewers per game. Now, we're seeing over 1 million regularly. That's not just growth, that's a ratings explosion. And that jump isn't just some vanity metric, it's real money in the league's pockets. More viewers mean better ad deals, which means bigger paychecks for everyone. But sure, let's go ahead and boycott that.
Like, I just can't believe it. But they're reasoning for boycotting the Fever games. They're literally saying, we should illegally stream the games when the Fever play our team. And I'm like, one, you are not a big enough percentage of the population for it to have any of.
Here's how the money trail really works. Player salaries are directly tied to media rights deals. These are the massive contracts that networks like ABC, ESPN, and CBS sign to get broadcast access. And those contracts are driven completely by viewership. The more people tuning in, the more these networks are willing to pay. It's basic business 101, but somehow this seems to fly right over the heads of the boycott crowd.
What it does is harm the players. No matter who you are, what team you are a fan of, if you want the players to make more money.
And guess what? The WNBA is currently in the middle of renegotiating its collective bargaining agreement, meaning this is the absolute worst time to be sulking in the corner and sabotaging ratings. Networks are watching Clark pull in massive audiences and are mentally adjusting their checkbooks. If the league plays its cards right, those high viewership games could raise the financial ceiling for every single player. But if this boycott nonsense gains traction, that ceiling might come crashing down.
Simply trying to ungrow the game. And it's madness. It's absolutely madness. Like, they're threatening to boycott the Fever Games. All 257 of them threatening to boycott Fever Games like it makes any difference. Like, these people are not fans of basketball. These people are actually not fans of the WNBA.
Let's break this down. Caitlin Clark shows up, and suddenly the WNBA starts pulling in 5 to 10 times more viewers than usual. That's not a minor bump. It's a full-on seismic shift. With that kind of buzz, networks are practically foaming at the mouth. They're not just open to renegotiating. They're practically throwing their wallets at the league. This is the kind of attention the WNBA has been chasing for decades. And now that it's finally here, some people want to boycott? Make it make sense.
Just don't like Caitlin Clark. Like, this is genuinely, it's nothing to do with basketball. And it's nothing to do with Caitlin Clark, the person. There's no rhyme or reason to it, because I don't think there is a harder person to dislike.
What makes this whole anti-Clark movement hilariously tragic is who's leading it. A lot of the same people who've been shouting for years about how WNBA players deserve higher pay are now trying to undermine the very force that could make that happen. These fans wanted the league to be respected, visible, and profitable. And now that a rookie is dragging all those dreams into reality with record-breaking numbers, they've suddenly decided that success is too mainstream for their liking.
It's a personal thing. And they will literally... These people, again, they're not fans of basketball. They're not fans of the WNBA. They're not fans of any teams. They just don't like...
It's almost poetic how short-sighted these boycott backers are. They're out here acting like viewership is some zero-sum game, as if one person getting attention somehow takes it away from everyone else. But that's not how any of this works. High ratings don't just mean more people watching Clark. They mean more ticket sales, more jerseys flying off the shelves, and more buzz around every team. It means sponsors who didn't even know the WNBA existed now want a piece of the action. Everyone wins, except apparently common sense.
I don't think they understand there's no viewership before Clark. So if they boycott, would it really...
And no, Caitlin Clark isn't out here hoarding cash like some villain in a heist movie. The money she's helping to generate is shared across the league. Salary caps go up, minimum salaries increase, and players who've spent years grinding for modest paychecks finally have a shot at real compensation. That's not favoritism. That's the tide rising for everyone. Yet, the haters would rather sink the whole boat just to make sure Caitlin doesn't get to steer it.
It's a situation where they move the goalpost. They'll always move the goalpost. You're seeing, like, prominent figures in the WNBA media-ish space. And the reason I say media-ish space is the Twitter trolls somehow are interact with the damn actual media in a two-way conversation.
But here's the real kicker. In what other sport do fans actively organize to ignore their most popular star? Can you imagine NFL fans boycotting Patrick Mahomes' games out of spite? Or NBA fans choosing to skip Steph Curry's TV appearances? Because he's too marketable? It's absurd. This isn't just a weird moment. It's a glaring example of how differently women's sports are treated when someone actually starts winning the fame game.
Well, us sports fans wanted to watch this crap before Caitlin Clark got involved. We would have been watching it. I mean, I own 2 sports channels. I get paid for talking about sports for a living. I was not watching this.
Let's not sugarcoat it. There's a thick layer of jealousy suffocating certain corners of the WNBA fan and media ecosystem. You've got legacy commentators and crusty Twitter users acting like Caitlin Clark's success is some kind of personal insult. Their mindset is, we suffered for this league and now you're just gonna show up and shine? Yes, she is. That's what happens when you're that good.
Possible to boycott just one team's games. Like we all just illegally stream them if they're playing one of our teams, ? That's the plan. Okay, Deidre.
Psychologically, it makes sense. These are people who've spent years gatekeeping women's basketball. They built niche communities, memorized every roster, and followed preseason trades like stock tips. And now, millions of new fans are flooding in, asking where Caitlin's merch is. It's classic turf anxiety. Suddenly, the thing they knew everything about belongs to the masses, and it's being redefined by someone who wasn't part of the old crew. That's tough to handle if you're ego is fragile.
I'm talking about the old WNBA media. I'm not talking about the ones that are in 5 years' time, they'll still be there. The old WNBA media that are shaking their fist at the screen every single time they see somebody that was not there with them when no one was watching getting an opportunity in the media that they didn't get, even though they're sitting there in spaces with Twitter trolls talking nonsense about play.
Of course, not every criticism of Clark is bogus. When people talk about her defense or her attitude with refs, that's fair game. Sports analysis is supposed to be critical. But when you realize male players are out here flopping like fish and barking at officials without anyone batting an eye, the microscope aimed at Clark starts looking pretty suspicious. The scrutiny is laced with double standards, and everyone sees it.
Here, we're on a whole new scale, all right? We've reached a whole new level. I literally said, is this real? I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I couldn't. They really think they matter. Typical.
And how about the constant moving of the goalposts? First, it was she won't handle college ball. She crushed it. Then it was she won't survive the pros. Newsflash. She's not just surviving, she's thriving. Now it's she's too hyped or she's stealing attention. At this point, critics aren't interested in fairness. They're just scrambling for a new reason to discredit her because the old ones keep getting torched by reality.
The vehicularly challenged bus at this point. All right? That's what's happening.
What's truly hilarious is that these so-called real fans claim to care about the league's integrity while trying to destroy its ratings. They're out here pushing anti-viewership agendas like they're freedom fighters, when in reality, they're just sabotaging their own side. And then they have the nerve to call Clark's fans fake for showing up and caring. Imagine being so allergic to success that you'd rather implode the whole league than share the love.
The heroes and legends among legends that don't even shiver the needle. That needle hadn't even shaken. It hadn't even accidentally, there ain't even been no accidental motion out of it. It's just like nothing. They want a boycott. No.
This whole spectacle isn't just about jealousy, it's a philosophical turf war. On one side, you've got the keepers of the old WNBA flame, the ones who preferred it when it was underground, gritty, and underappreciated. On the other side, there's a massive wave of new fans ready to see women's basketball blow up in the mainstream, led by a once-in-a-generation superstar. It's punk rock versus pop stardom, and Clark is headlining the stadium tour. But here's the thing. None of this backlash changes the reality. Clark is elevating the league, whether the haters like it or not. Attendance is up, merchandise is flying off the shelves, and teams are playing to sold-out crowds. Not just because someone retweeted a nice pass, but because Clark has made people care. She's not just boosting herself, she's a rising tide lifting every roster.
Social media wants you to believe most people are sound. Most people you meet are good people. It's just the minority of idiots are a very loud minority.
This isn't the time for tribalism, it's the time for celebration. Women's sports have fought for decades to be seen, to matter, to be part of the conversation. And now, with this momentum, we've finally arrived. Sponsors are dialing in, executives are cashing out, and players are seeing their earnings rise. What's sparking this revolution? A rookie with a deadly jump shot and national charisma. Instead of dividing the fan base, this should be the moment that unites it. Think about what happened with women's soccer and tennis. When stars emerged and drew crowds, the entire sport benefited. That's what's possible here, if we stop arguing and start building. Clark is the bridge to that future, and the smart move is to walk across it, not burn it down.